Oh, you're comfortable back there, madam?
Oh yes, I'm fine.
That's good. You know, you'd be glad to know you're sitting in the same seat that our good governor sat in just the other day.
Oh really?
Yes, ma'am. He had to get to the city hall, and he was taken there by yours truly. That was a proud day for sure. Yes.
Oh, okay.
In fact, you know, I've taken all kinds of people around this town. I took the superintendent to our high school just the other day.
Really?
Yeah, he had some important meetings he had to get to. I don't know, but it was a nice trip nonetheless.
Okay.
In fact, we had an astronomer in town here just the other day. Quirky little fella, but he had to get to the planetarium.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am, I've taken people all over this fine town of ours.
That's nice. Are we going to be at the library soon?
Oh, yes, ma'am. We'll be there in just another few minutes. As soon as I find it. Hey there folks, I am Jeff, and this is Tabletop Toolbox. Today, I want to fill you in on a new small box game that's coming to Kickstarter. This is Taxi, the game of fair play by Mark Miller and Blue Token Games. In Taxi, players will be competing to establish the route to get their customer from point A to point B before any other player. And that's probably a good place to start here by mentioning that this isn't really a pick up and deliver game. Players are randomly dealt a fare card at the beginning of the game, and each card will tell them where their customer wants to get from and where they want to get to. To establish that route, players will take turns drawing and playing cards from this deck, which contains a variety of different cards within. Most of them will be these road cards, which are used to expand a common town map between players. But there are also a variety of traffic and obstruction cards, which players will be able to use to hopefully, and quite intentionally, hamper the efforts of other players. Aw, did you get stuck behind that parade? Oh no, there's a blizzard. Why people are parading during a blizzard, I have no idea, but players will want to use these distractions and obstructions against their opponents because they'll never quite know when or where the 6 main locations in the town will be revealed. These blue cards are seated into the top half of the deck, and when drawn, they must be played into the town, either by the player who drew them or by another player at the table, if the active player has that location listed on their current fare card. This provides the best opportunity for that location card to get played behind some clunky obstructions, perhaps on a different length of roadway or even on the wrong end of a one-way street. Now, if you're lucky and by the end of your turn have a clear shot from the starting destination to the final destination listed on your fare card, you can declare your fare, flipping the card over. And if by the end of your next turn you still have a clear shot, you win the game. You can also choose to forfeit your entire hand of cards to replace your fare card with a new one taken from the available deck, but you will have to wait until your next turn to declare that fare in the unlikely chance that that route is already in play. Your standard turn is pretty simple, by the way. You start off drawing up to a hand size of 5 cards, pick 1 to play, and then pick 1 card to discard. That's pretty much how you play the game of Taxi. This is a rather lightweight game, but I do want to real quick chat about these figures shown here on the front of the box. Now, I've only ever played this at 3, so I can't really discuss the other player counts. I will tell you that even at 3, we've managed to make it about halfway through this deck of cards, which gets reshuffled if it ever runs out. I'll also say that the 13 plus age recommendation is mostly due to some cards having a decent amount of text to read, though there is another factor of the age I'll get to in a moment. What I will say is that I've never gotten anywhere near that 30 to 90 minute playtime suggestion, with each of our games lasting maybe 15 minutes or so. Now, there are 2 reasons why I don't think we've seen those longer playtimes. For one, I've always played this with my family, and my family tends not to favor heavy take-that mechanisms in games. Even when presented with opportunities for take-that, my family will typically just discard those cards or ignore those rules or take the least aggressive action we think we can get away with. And I think that's one aspect to consider when it comes to age range. I don't know that younger kids, including my 12-year-old daughter, are going to look for every path of aggression possible, which would tend to lengthen the game. Another thing to consider, though, is how we tend to build our city maps. A lot of our maps have looked something like this, with multiple paths being able to connect multiple locations. Alternatively, you could build something like this, with minimal common intersections or even entirely separate pathways to keep locations isolated from one another. If there are a lot of ways to get from one point to another, then honestly a lot of those blockades become ineffective, as it will be pretty easy to get around them. On the other hand, keeping things spread out and isolated means a single blockade could ruin the fares of multiple players. There is also, of course, an element of luck here. In 2 of my playthroughs, I drew the exact card I needed on my turn to remove a blockade that had been added since my previous turn when I had declared my fare, and that allowed me to win the game immediately. Suffice to say, things like luck, the age and personality of your players, and the way in which players build out your town will have a substantial impact on how long you find yourself sitting down to play Taxi. I also should have mentioned this a while ago, but this is a prototype copy of Taxi, though I can report that the components and art design here is pretty much final, though some things like font and the card distribution in this deck may change a bit before the final version. If you'd like to learn more about Taxi, the game of fair play, you can check out the Kickstarter page, to which I'll post a link in this video's description. Until then, play fair, and good luck trying to find that library.
I'm still mad at you.
Sorry, ma'am. Cheers.